Welcome to Finding Zen with Michael Pottern, where everyday moments become sacred. I'm your host, Michael Pottern. Together, we explore how presence shows up in people's lives and the quiet gifts they reveal themselves to be when we truly pay attention. So take a breath, settle in, and let's hear what presence has to say.
Hi, I'm Devon Kerns here on the Finding Zen podcast. Today we're exploring consciousness in the age of AI. Stay curious and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to Finding Zen podcast. Today we're with Devon Kerns, a very dear friend. Let's just take a moment, find our breath, and see what presence has to say. Hey there, brother.
Hey.
This is really exciting just because we always get into really deep and expansive conversations when it's one-on-one, and now we're just bringing in some other friends to our conversations. What I think really we're going to be excavating today is consciousness in this age of AI. In previous episodes, we've talked about AI as therapy and also AI in terms of analyzing our health, but we haven't really gone into this consciousness side. So let's, I guess, give people a little bit of background about you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think well, first, thanks for having me.
Of course.
This is exciting, watching this journey unfold. The quick answer to that is I found out at 17 years old that I'm a bad employee. So it was either have no work at all or go into entrepreneurship. And so I've started businesses since I was 19 years old, and some were success and some failed. And that whole journey of the up and down, wild world of entrepreneurship and building businesses. And today, I'm still involved in the entrepreneurial world, looking at bigger and bigger projects. But my heart is really calling me into this more supportive role. And about 5 years ago, I got involved with Insight Timer, which is a meditation app, and spending a lot of my time on there, just reaching people through lives and creating meditations and finding ways that I can be of service to individuals who might be looking for a little bit of expansion or struggling with some of the chaos that's out there.
Well, let's start with that. Struggling with the chaos. I think we've discussed before AI as a mirror. What would you say is ways that we can start using AI in terms of giving us clarity about ourselves when we are so confused by all the external messaging that we're getting?
I think I would start with that. If you could access that childlike wonder first and not need to know how to use it, but really play, right? It's so interesting when I watch people use technology for the first time. My mom with an iPhone is an example, who's 85 years old. Like, Mom, you can't break it. You can't get it wrong. You can always just go back, right? And that same theory applies here with AI, where you just play with it, like get to know it, let it get to know you. And I know it feels like we'll dive into curiosity a little bit later, but that's such a key component because it's unlike anything we've ever had before, in the sense that I kind of needed to know how to use some aspects of technology in the past, whereas I can ask it how to use it and then ask it how to prompt how to use it, right? And if you're wanting to do some self-discovery, just that process alone of learning how to ask questions from more of a playful spirit of not getting it wrong and having the freedom to do so without that fear of getting it wrong or screwing it up, has been so helpful to me, because as it has learned that process, almost both of us growing together at the same time, and a willingness to maybe even talk about things that I would talk about it in public, but not a lot of people would talk about it in public. And again, just digging down that rabbit hole. The caution maybe that I'd throw out is just like when talking to a person, take what resonates and see what resonates. Not all things are true from any aspect. Doesn't matter who you're talking to, right? But just play. And I think more than AI giving you the answer, because there isn't such a thing, you will discover more about you through that play and being able to use something that can give you feedback from all kinds of angles with all kinds of aggregated data.
Mm-hmm. That lands in many ways, especially from the ability to synthesize thoughts that sometimes outside perspective, and then adding in that little bit of childlike wonder, curiosity, play, where it's not so much, is this giving me the exact thing that I need? Maybe there's math and other structures that we do need that for. But when we're talking about consciousness, when we're talking about self exploration, I do think that it's also the perspective that we're taking when we go into the exploration in and of itself. So having those questions that really maybe also invite a little bit of antagonism and like, what am I missing here? And let's even throw that word curiosity into it. How can people be more curious with AI?
Again, I think it just goes back to that playful spirit. As I've had a lot of conversations with varying levels of individuals in the AI world, whether they're on ethical boards and kind of coming from that caution and where are our stop guards, to people playing with it and going down rabbit holes that are convincing them that they are archangels or something, right? The varying levels of being able to play with it. I don't just think curiosity is important in terms of playing with AI. I think because of the direction that robotics, AI, and even quantum computing are heading, the need to learn will be dramatically reframed. And I think those that will win in this new era are in fact going to be those that are the most curious, asking the most potent, not necessarily the most powerful questions. And potency is discovered through alchemy, not certainty, meaning mixing things together and playing and staying in this, well, if that, then what, right? Mode and a willingness to not be certain, a willingness to not know, a willingness to play in the distortion of truth, a willingness to dance on the edge of the mystery. Because as we're seeing pretty quickly, even with things like the James Webb telescope, what we thought we knew, we didn't. And I think that's only going to become more and more true. And so when we can use curiosity to alchemize potent questions that allow for us to activate new levels of creation and creativity, we're going to be able to construct a world that my hope is more harmonious than the fear that I think is being projected out there right now around AI. I think there's definite concerns when it comes to people using it. I don't necessarily have a concern with AI itself, but I think if humanity can learn the power of curiosity and powerful and potent questions, I think we're going to be just fine because we can harness its power to build new communities, new world.
Yeah. And I think it's even interesting just watching how AI programming, coding, there's the 5 levels of AI prompting, and they're really starting to say developers are actually really bad at using AI because they get too much into the weeds and they're not operating from that different perspective. So I think that there's so many different layers to this onion of AI. How do we actually use it in healthy, productive ways that actually do empower our lives, and hopefully get us back into nature more. That's
exactly.
I think where I hope to see it go. And I also hear from you though that there's this part of where we're going that it's actually having a regulated nervous system that then allows us to actually think properly.
One of the things talked about today is how most people aren't lacking answers. They're just moving too fast to hear themselves. That childlike curiosity, that ability to play, it only shows up when your system actually has space. That's why I love what they're offering at the Denver Zen Den, including their MindWave technology collection, where anyone can bring the tech home. And like we said, as technology evolves and people incorporate it into their daily lives, it's not about doing more. It's about letting it do the doing so you can be more. Not to give you answers, but to help you discover your own. All right, let's return to the conversation with Devon.
Talk about that a little bit, because I think quite often we get these inspirations, but they come from maybe dysregulated states.
We're starting to see here and there bits of tidbits of science exploring the mind in ways that you and I have been talking about for a while, just in asking really unique questions around. As an example, one of my favorite is that I've asked neuroscientists and psychologists and brain mapping experts, what is memory? And like, well, it's when this part fires and this part fires, and the synapses firing in those certain ways recall that information. I'm like, yeah, but recall from where? And they're like, well, when this fires and this fires and this fires. I kind of stop there, and I'm like, but if we go on a quantum journey, just like any cell, the further we go, the more nothing there is. So where is it stored? Like, where's the little file cabinet? And there's no storage. So essentially what we're talking about is the firing of these synapses, creating an electrical charge that when they fire together, they're recalling pattern that we call memory. But from where? And in essence, it feels like the cloud. Right? Our own version of our cloud, that electromagnetic field that's carrying information. And for me, I only bring this up because when we're talking about thinking in different ways, thought and memory and recall, not only have I had 7 concussions that affected my noodle to not function the way I'd like for it to, maybe that's not true. I actually kind of prefer this version of me. And then a whole lot of, as you know, psychedelic journeys and medicine journeys and just that exploration of something outside of my own field of consciousness, that I question whether just the brain is the thinker. And I can feel the difference between when I am in dialogue and trying to look smart or intelligent and pulling from a field of intellect versus finding space like I do sometimes on Insight Timer when I'm doing oracle readings or whatever it may be, where all of a sudden Devon isn't essentially there and I am accessing information that I shouldn't know necessarily, right? And so I think in this path of dialogue with AI and exploration around fields of consciousness instead of my intellect or my intelligence, where is all this information coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I look at even technology and a phone, and when we're referencing the cloud, and I take a picture and it's stored on a cloud, which is supposedly chips all over the world. If I did the same thing with a microchip and I examined it at a quantum level, there's nothing there. So it's like, what is AI? What is my thinking? Where is this coming from? And what kind of fields of consciousness can we access? And how can we harmoniously fire together like synapses to recall information that might be deemed unknown on our planet right now, right? Let's hypothetically say any of these ancient versions of what was on Earth pre what we think is historical. Let's the Atlanteans. Let's say that's true. Were they just wandering around going, ego, me, right? Or were they truly kind of more of a functional neuron unit firing and pulling information that is stored in these different fields? I don't know. But when I get in rooms and we are functioning outside of ego, it gets real interesting as in terms of what we can access and what we can pull down and what we can dialogue around. And you and I have sat and done this often.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that I don't know intellectually. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of move into my own version of curiosity, a possibility, if we could just harness this technology in a way that allows for us to access more of what is unknown and unseen that could serve for a preservation of life on the planet instead of the egoic destruction that we see.
It reminds me of David Byrne, the lead singer of Talking Heads, and he created a thing here in Colorado a couple of years ago called the Theater of the Mind, and it was an experiential, immersive playhouse that you went from room to room, and you would actually have these different types of, let's say, games that you would play, but they were like neuroscience games where you were just kind of exposed to the fact that like our memory is always changing. So what we remember is not really our memory in so many ways, or is not what is the truth. Secondly, is that we all are using our own perspective. So even if we're looking at the same thing, we'll see different things, and how amazing and how, again, more playful and just like silly and cosmic joke this all is when we start to, lessen the everything has to be right or wrong and I have to be perfect, and more just I'm showing up with integrity because I know myself. I also am curious because you kind of touched into this thing of why I think Dave Byrne really got into this was because it's art and music are parts of how we get into that intuition and how we can maybe actually use AI in more fluid ways. Is that something you want to extrapolate upon?
Harnessing creativity?
Yeah.
I mean, it's opened me up. I love to imagine myself as somebody that one day is going to sit down and write a song, that one day is going to just get this download and channel Lennon. Probably not going to happen. But when I can sit down with AI and share a really deep story and ask it to help me formulate this lyrically, and then because I have played around with genres of music and told it my favorite types of music, it can spit out a prompt that I can feed into Suno or whatever that is, and take the lyrics based on me, that it helped me form into a song. And then the prompt of the rhythms and beats and BPMs and hertz and all the things that I love in my music. And I can copy and paste that in there. And then all of a sudden I am able to create music that has resonance to me on a deeply personal level. Or in the case of serving someone else. Recently, a dear friend of mine had to put he and his partner, who are having a little baby girl in April, they were very excited for their beautiful golden retriever to meet their little girl. And unfortunately, they had to put the dog down just a month ago. And, what do you say in those moments? You can't say anything, but I can recall the stories they told me about when they purchased a beautiful catamaran and they were bringing their dog out there to the islands and island hopping with their catamaran, and the dog wouldn't pee on the boat and the dog wouldn't pee in the water. So every time the dog had to pee, they had to jump in the dinghy and take it to the shore, right? And the dog loved when they'd get chicken nuggets from Chick-fil-A, and so those are little notes you can put in there. And we love listening as friends to Mumford and Sons. So I know he loves that genre, right? And I can take this entire story and create this beautiful living legacy, harnessing creativity and my curiosity of how do we structure this? How do we put all this together? And then form a song that then they get to have as their emotionally connected living memory through a process of something as potent as music that will serve them, and bringing in their daughter, eventually having their daughter, because she was written into the storyline about the Rainbow Road, right? And I had this image of the dog crossing the soul of the little girl, and they're hanging out together until April, until she comes down to earth. And the way AI put it out was that actually the soul of the golden retriever would bring down their daughter, Scout, to them, and then head back to the Rainbow Road, right? And that's written in the song. I'm like, I would have never thought of that. Yeah. But it's so potent and something that all three of them now can sit in and be in and cry in and love in and experience. And I know artists and musicians are afraid, but they shouldn't be, right? If I had the talent, I would have done it myself. But I don't think that it's going to have the same juiciness of someone who can channel that, because it's getting channeled essentially from the same space, in my not so humble opinion. But if a human can do it and bring the biology and the alchemical aspect and their story into it, great. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to do that too, right? And I know nobody's saying that, but it shouldn't be a threat. It should just be this process where we can all participate in our creativity in our own way and be able to create the way we want to create.
Yeah, and that just expands upon so many of my friends that say we're all musicians and we should all just pick up an instrument or anything and just start doing that and doing it together, because that also is part. I like that you brought in that you were doing this for others, because that actually shows presence. That shows that you're paying attention. So it's actually not disconnecting from you because you didn't personally write it. It shows even more of the magic of how you see it and getting somebody out of their probably tunnel vision of, oh my gosh, this is, just devastating, to, oh my gosh, this is something beautiful unfolding, and just, honoring the full spectrum of life.
Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of presence, we'll just kind of, I think, continue to dive in on, where these technologies can amplify. Where do you see AI and other technologies supporting presence?
The analogy I like to use, and I'll see if I can articulate this well for you. for your podcast. When I'm at a coffee shop, it doesn't matter as much. I can screw it up. Let's say you and I are at a coffee shop. In our old model, if we saw something that could improve the coffee experience, right? Some widget or gidget that we noticed. If we're like writing it down and doing the napkin thing, right? The napkin business plan. You got to look at it. And the first filter you're going to go through in the old days is, do we really want to do that? Because we got to do it all. We got to come up with the plan. We got to come up with the marketing. We got to determine the audience. We've got to create the prototype. We've got to ship that prototype off to somebody who can finish the design, and then we've got to send it off to the manufacturers, and then we've got to acquire and purchase a bunch of them, hopefully, and find the money to be able to do that, right? Those days aren't quite gone, but we're getting close pretty quick to where you and I have our phone out with the AI, and we say, hey, here's our idea. Could you design about 6 different versions of this and create the schematics and show us the dimensions and blah, 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 and make a 3D version and let us look at it and blah, blah, blah. And then determine the audience, how we'd market it, give us a list of the top 15 names we should call this. Are there other products that you see around this that could be supportive to it? And then help us create the prototype, ship it off to our guy that does prototyping. Maybe he's got a 3D printer, so just send it right to the 3D printer. Why not, right? And notify a manufacturer and give us a top 10 list of manufacturers that could get this done, and reach out to them, send an email, and let them know that we're going to be sending something over for them to manufacture, right? Some version of that, obviously. But we still have 45 minutes left in our time together for coffee. And we have AI running in the background with the majority of the doing. And as robotics gets better, as the technology enhances, as scary and weird as it may seem, as AGI arrives and the ability to not think, the supercomputing that we have no idea what that even looks like yet. I can't even imagine what we're going to be able to actually do using technology so that we don't have to do and we get our time back. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean, and I think the fear is people will stop creating. I actually think the potential for more creation is possible. Now, do we need more widgets and gadgets and nonsense? Probably not. But even then, if I'm not busy searching for the thing that's going to put money in my pocket, but I am buying myself more time, and I am having deeper and deeper relationship with people, I may not try and be an over-consumer or an over-developer. I may look at what's actually important to me and develop things that are more important through that process of presence because I have time. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just running on the hamster wheel, right? So I see infinite potential for creativity and creation with the harding and doing being handed off to things that can run on a 24-hour basis and might even love doing so. We don't know.
Yeah, I've had those types of coffee dates that end up being so productive, and it's not just even getting all that in motion. It's the jazz of going back and forth between our mirror neurons and saying what's missing, like how can we continue to add to the souffle, and then say, all right, let's put it in the oven and see what happens. I think that's where we can even get out of our way even more, because then we're not saying, oh, here's the exact outcome. We can put it in, see what it produces as here's the scenario and here's what it's predicting. And then we can actually then modulate and course correct in real time.
Well, and how much waste do you no longer have?
Yeah.
Not just of time, of resources, money, products that are ineffective and or undesirable from the marketplace, but I thought it was a genius idea at the time, like it just feels so clean if we go back to that place of curiosity and we're willing to ask it things like what you brought up earlier, which is show me what I can't see. Yeah. Right. Our filter is microscopic in comparison, because I only know so much. And even with what I know based on the day, my emotions and the environment and everything kind of narrows my scope and narrows my field, to which if I just learn how to ask those potent questions around things before jumping into action, you can really refine and you can really aggregate data in order to be efficient or allow for it to be more efficient in the doing. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I actually get super excited by it.
I'm curious what lessons you've learned from Insight Timer and creating these meditations and hosting these conversations where, I've been on there for your lives that are questions out of left field that, it's kind of like very, life important things. And they're asking you, obviously you don't know much about them, if anything, and to reflect back questions. Is there an art that you think you kind of developed through Insight Timer? I'm just curious how to inspire people to think differently about how they're prompting and how they're engaging, because I think that's why I love your perspective the most. And this, current phase of things is because you really come from this strong entrepreneurial background as well as a strong spiritual background, and now you're able to synthesize in ways that I haven't really seen many other people do.
I'll start with what I've personally learned about myself that has kind of shocked me, and then what I've learned really around kind of the stuckness I see on a consistent basis with people, and it has to do with this idea of presence that we were just talking about. But what's been really interesting to me and for me is, I got on there initially 5 years ago because I knew something wanted to get out, right? So, something from my journeys and my meditations and my devotion and all these other things to my own growth wanted to be shared, and what I found was through the mirroring of other and their challenges, if I was unapologetic about what wanted to be expressed in that moment, knowing that my heart wants to be of service, but I'm also a pretty direct and blunt person, which doesn't always feel good, but when it's coming from love and not really trying to push, but support, I probably have learned more than any single human being on there, because the stuff that I could feel in me that was wanting to come out, I needed other and their challenge to get me into that point of being willing to express something that I've not personally read in books. I decided when I was 31 years old to not pick up a book and read it. And the only book that I have read since then is The Gene Keys, because it tells me about me. doesn't tell me how to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as I've sat there in this mirroring experience with people, if you don't know about Insight Timer, for those that are listening, you can go live on there, and I'm engaging with people, but I can't see them and I know nothing about them. And so they'll ask a question, but all of a sudden I'm in this experience with them where I can feel them. I've even been able to tell when somebody's doing the dishes, even though somebody asked me to do an oracle reading on there. And since then, I've done them almost twice a week for 5 years now, which I'm really shocked by. Look at me now, Mom. And I can feel when they're distracted. This sixth sense has come out from that experience that has been so potent in this harmonious experience with strangers all around the world. And one of the most powerful things is realizing by setting this space, by going live, right? And you have 40 million people using this app. So at any given time, there's hundreds of thousands of people on there. We usually have an audience of 200 or 300 people in the room, and they're literally from all over the world. But what's interesting is they could be from all different time zones. But what hit me was we are now in a single time together. The same hour has gone by together, and we're no longer in distance. We are united under this thing we call live. And through that process, the tighter the container that I create, the more power there is in that room, the more connection there is in that room, the more synergy. And I just have learned how to let go and become the speaker, right? If I'm playing music, the speaker's just taking the information being fed to it and disseminating it. That's what my voice box has become. And it's been so powerful to have somebody on there that has a chronic pain, and the information that comes out, I'm like, never thought about that before. That was beautiful. But because I can feel the information coming up from my body and coming out, I know it's wisdom beyond my own intellect, which has changed me forever. The interesting thing in terms of challenge that I see on a consistent basis with people, and it goes back to this state of presence, is we get down to this finite moment with some of the readings or some of the conversations I have with people on there. And I'm just asking them this idea of micro wanting and micro fulfillment. What does your body want right now? Not your mind. What does your body want right now? People struggle deeply to get so present to realize that they're thirsty or they want an apple. They constantly are moving into this later today or next week, maybe I'll. And what I've found from that is the potency and necessity of grounding and rooting into our bodies to discover what it is we actually want and need right now, and then the process of achieving it and getting it. Right? The getting the apple seems so insignificant until you don't have the apple in the kitchen and you just have a banana. And most people, because they don't have an apple, will just consume the banana, but their body was craving an apple. And they won't take the time to get into the car to go to the store to get the thing their body is asking for. But there's an entire journey that needs to unfold there of the, oh my God, somebody made shoes for me. Somebody built car. Somebody paved road. When you walk into a grocery store and you look at a grocery store and you actually understand what that is, there's 50 different types of apples and 300 apples per category. Sugar beets. 300 sugar beets sitting there waiting for me to pick one of those because I wanted apple. Talk about abundance and blessing, at least we have in the US, right? And when we can slow that process down from this micro wanting and get the fulfillment of the journey to go get the apple, the taste of that apple is unlike anything you've ever had. And so not only are we talking about harnessing technology to buy us more time, to have more time and just consume, that's where I think we're going to run into trouble. But if we can harness technology to slow it down and move into an embodiment and to understand the difference between a craving of potassium versus vitamin C and fiber, I may not interpret it that way, but body will say banana or apple. And to get that present, and then when I don't have apple, don't just consume.
Yeah.
Go on the journey. And everything changes from that place.
What a wonderful example of lived childlike wonder. Because to me, when you then avoid not paying attention to what the body wants, then we go into, I'm going to give the mind what it wants. So I'm going to go on that restaurant that we've been trying to get into, and all these other things that society said is how we're enjoying and succeeding in life, versus actually just taking the 10 minutes to maybe drive down to the store and really savor that apple and actually use it as like a moment in the day to get out to nature, stack that and really then make it a whole thing. And then now your whole day was changed. You're much more happy because you actually got what you wanted. And how many other things then are affected by that?
100%. I do think you just said happy. And so often I see people saying, my goal is happiness. I actually don't think that's true. I think our goal is enrichment and fulfillment. Because even in pain, I can be fulfilled if I'm willing to immerse myself in that thing. When we are caught in the mind, we get caught in the consumption, resistance, or avoidance. And you can't find fulfillment in those things.
Yeah.
You definitely can't find happiness, but you can't find fulfillment. And the reason I don't pursue happiness is because it's fleeting and it's just a chemical in my body. Fulfillment is a state I can achieve. And from that state, I can be immersed in all of the emotion. I can be immersed in what's here for me now and the unfolding of that. And typically you'll find significant amounts of gratitude, which I would rather live with than happiness.
I appreciate that reframe. And joy and bliss are usually the words that I default to. But when I'm thinking for other people, sometimes I don't use that kind of perspective, just because I do know that's what people say to me. Here's what I'm seeking. So that's, again, the nuances that, we get to learn from each other. And just those little undulations and those modulations can have such a different effect on where we end up landing.
For sure.
I do want to just give a little context, because you brought up gene keys, and we're talking about going away from the structure of the mind, just so we can have that tool for listeners to explore. What is gene keys? Without getting too deep in the river.
So essentially, in this conversation around consciousness, if we look at software coding, right, the software will behave according to the coding that's there. Something, I think, is there that is supporting human consciousness. And this gentleman who I've had the opportunity to spend some time with, Richard Rudd, wrote the gene keys in this profound download. You'll have to hear his story of where he got this. It's essentially combining the essence of human design, which is also similar to this concept, and the I Ching. And it is these 64 codes that are a part of the 64 strands within DNA that support the human experience and human consciousness, the states of consciousness. And he references, he digests them in a shadow state, a gift state, and then a Siddhic state. Siddhic being the highest vibration. If we looked at it from a sense of frequency, shadow wouldn't be judged, and we have a tendency to use judgment when we're reframing this. But shadow is like dense vibration. Gift would be a lightening up out of that dense vibration into a state that is more harmonious, more fluid, more free, more expressive, more creative. And then Siddhic really is not you can dance between shadow and gift. Citic is more something that isn't attained. It is those rare breakthroughs that people have, like Richard Rudd did, or the Christ frequency, or the Buddhic frequencies. It's when a human encounters something that pops them into a state that is, I don't even know what to call it, but it's like the Christ frequency. Yeah. It's these potent states of being that are the highest states attainable for the human body and mind.
Yeah. I think these are the things that we need to start getting more curious about. And I think gene keys or even human design are perfect, avenues to start getting curious in a new way. Yeah. Because to me, it does give structure to that exploration, where I think quite often, people in meditation, they're kind of sitting there saying, am I supposed to see God, or what's supposed to happen here? And then they get frustrated and all these other things. So I really just encourage people to start to, be open to different ways of thinking, because then you really do have these amazing tools that then you can put in and say, hey, here's my code structure, and here's some things, and here's my archetype. And, how would that feel to actually live into that? And I do feel that that's kind of part of where we're going, is if I can quantum jump into the feeling of vibration, not what it looks like, but the feeling and the affect of what that feeling might be able to do, that has gratitude, that has humbleness, that has all this other componentry. I think that's what the universe knows how to conspire with.
Yes.
All the other stuff, it's like, hey, I hear you, but I don't know what you're saying.
Yes.
And so I just invite people to start to explore these tools in new ways. And again, even if maybe you looked into it 10 years ago, it's going to have a whole different lens on it now, because of where we're at in the world, and where we're at even just with self-awareness of our needs beyond just the hierarchy that we thought we needed before the pandemic.
There's no question. And I don't think for a period of time that the world is going to get any less chaotic, because there is this distortion of truth that is taking place. And for me, I'm not an optimist. I'm more of an idealist. But I look at it, and I can't help but look at it through the lens of a 30,000 foot view, and the speed at which we are transmuting these deep, 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 dark places that we're here on this planet that are being forced to the surface, and forcing us to not only look at our leadership, to look at our societies, to look at our politics, to look at our dogmatic structures, but it's forcing us to look at us and what is it we really believe. And when you can harness things like gene keys and human design and have some input and some reflection, one of the things I did was definitely feed it all that information, as well as my astrology and Myers-Briggs and all these things, right? You can put it all in and say, summarize this, and then create a story of me living in my highest and greatest potential with the most freedom and most abundance. And it created one of the most magnificent things I've ever read. Then I handed it off to, what's the thing that does the voice, the AI?
11 Labs.
Yeah, 11 Labs. I handed it off to 11 Labs. And so then I'm reading my script and recording me using AI as me, telling me the story, and then I put beautiful music behind it using Suno.
Yeah.
And now I've got this epic visualization of the highest, greatest potential that I could be living, with me telling me about that story that I listened to with beautiful music, right? And those are the tools that I just think will change everything. And as the world becomes chaotic, and we aren't even scratching the surface of what I know you and I probably realize is actually going to happen here over the next few years, man, if you can just see you won't buy into the nonsense that's out there, and you will play a role in the change and the shifting of this conscious state by finding your own truth, not the truth, but just your truth, and living into it. And I think that that is something that we need more of.
I think that really touches on, I think, our connection around that specific part. Obviously, with the Zen Den, creating these containers for somebody to come in, to reconnect to self, to use tools that create a non-ordinary state to kind of be also regulated, so we can actually hear what's really underneath. That's where we're going to, I think, kind of choose to be in a Hogwarts world versus a Muggle world.
Yeah. I gotta say, Michael, thank you for being on the edge of that, by the way, and really pushing the boundaries here in Colorado and all over the place with Zen Den, because you stepped out into territory earlier than most, and it is so potent. So many people are fearful of some of the tools that are out there, particularly when we're talking about plant medicines and these psychedelics, I don't know that they should be, but as it makes sense, right? And to have this gift where you can combine those things or not combine those things and really access deep operating systems within the body, nervous system resets, synaptic resets, and unlocking at a deep genetic level your gifts, for you giving people the gift to unlock their gift, is so amazing to watch. And I like to think that I'd be brave enough to go do that, but I obviously haven't yet. And so I got to say, in knowing you and watching this unfold, I'm not only proud to know you, but thank you, because it's making a huge difference.
Well, humbled and privileged to hear that from you, especially just because you've been such an inspiration, and that part of my fortitude to stay in it. Because I think that's what I also, my share and invitation is that it is scary. It is, you got to literally let go of this vine that we've held on to. But once you let go and you give it space and you have patience, that's when I think the magic really starts to come through. And that's why I wanted to kind of just finalize with this synthesis of what does that look like? Because I think we can talk high level, and I'll even put some tools in the show notes for everybody that they can start to explore this from home, because this isn't something that you just need to come to Colorado to, or go do these deep journeys. I think that these are things that we should just bake into every day, so that we can continue to come back to self, as well as lean into what's unknown, and where can we thrive in that. So thank you so much, Devon. Thank you, everybody, for joining today, and I hope we all move a little slower, converse a little deeper, and find the Zen in every day. Thank you for being here today. If our conversation opened something new for you, a little presence, a little wonder, share it with someone who might need it. Until next time, move a little slower, listen a little deeper, and keep finding the Zen in your own life.